From turquoise waters where coral cities breathe beneath the surface, to rain-washed mountains rising from volcanic fire, to hidden lagoons, sunlit beaches, and cultures shaped by centuries of movement and survival. This is the Caribbean. Join me in discovering the Caribbean's most extraordinary islands. And uncover how nature, history, and people intertwine in ways few regions on Earth can replicate. First, let's take a moment to explore a few fascinating facts about the Caribbean. Then, we'll begin our journey across this remarkable archipelago. And stay with me until the very end, where we'll uncover the islands that hold the Caribbean's greatest natural and cultural secrets. Fun facts about the Caribbean. The Caribbean is made up of more than 700 islands, reefs, and cays, stretching in a vast arc between North and South America. Some islands were formed by powerful volcanic eruptions, while others emerged slowly, built by coral over millions of years. Despite its size, the Caribbean is one of the most biologically diverse regions on the planet, home to thousands of species found nowhere else on Earth. The sea has shaped everything here. From coral reefs that protect coastlines to underwater caves, shipwrecks, and hidden blue holes. The Caribbean is also one of the most culturally diverse regions in the world. Spanish, English, French, and Dutch are all spoken across the islands, alongside Creole languages born from shared history. And beyond its beauty, the Caribbean has influenced the world through its music, its food, and its rhythms, from reggae and salsa to spices, sugar, and stories carried across the sea. Next, we'll explore the best islands in the Caribbean and discover what makes each one truly unforgettable. The best islands in the Caribbean. Barbados stands apart from most Caribbean islands due to its geological origin. Formed primarily from uplifted coral limestone, rather than volcanic activity. Located on the eastern boundary of the Caribbean, it is fully exposed to Atlantic trade winds, shaping both its climate and coastline. The interior rises gently into rolling hills, while the western shores feature calm beaches and natural harbors that encouraged early settlement. Bridgetown developed as a major British colonial port, and the island remained under British rule for over 3 centuries. Sugar plantations once dominated the economy, leaving behind a lasting imprint on land use and architecture. Coral reefs surround much of the island, supporting marine biodiversity and protecting the coast from erosion. Today, Barbados combines strong democratic traditions with deep-rooted cultural practices, maintaining a balance between modern tourism and preserved historical identity. Bonaire lies off the coast of Venezuela, and forms part of the ABC Islands of the Southern Caribbean. Its landscape is predominantly arid, shaped by limestone terraces, salt flats, and sparse vegetation adapted to limited rainfall. The island is surrounded by one of the healthiest coral reef systems in the Caribbean. Protected as a national marine park and globally recognized for biodiversity conservation. Inland salt pans reflect the sky and host large populations of flamingos, while mangroves serve as critical nurseries for marine life. Historically controlled by the Dutch, Bonaire developed around salt extraction and maritime trade rather than plantation agriculture. Settlements remain small and closely tied to the sea. Today, the island prioritizes environmental protection, sustainable tourism, and scientific research, making it a model for balancing economic activity with long-term ecological preservation. Martinique is a French overseas territory located in the Lesser Antilles, shaped by intense volcanic activity and steep mountainous terrain. The island is dominated by Mount Pelée, an active stratovolcano whose catastrophic eruption in 1902 destroyed the city of Saint-Pierre and reshaped the island's history. Fertile volcanic soils support dense rainforests in the north and extensive banana and sugarcane plantations in lower elevations. Rivers cascade from the highlands toward narrow coastal plains, creating sharp ecological contrasts across short distances. As a French department, Martinique blends European governance with deeply rooted Caribbean culture, expressed through Creole language, cuisine, and music. Coral reefs and mangroves fringe much of the coastline, protecting marine ecosystems and fisheries. The island's strategic location made it a key naval and trade outpost during colonial conflicts, a role that continues to influence its infrastructure and economy today. Jamaica. Jamaica rises from the Caribbean Sea as a mountainous island defined by dramatic contrasts between coast and interior. The Blue Mountains dominate the eastern region, capturing moisture-laden winds and feeding rivers that descend toward fertile coastal plains. These highlands produce world-renowned coffee, grown in cool conditions rarely found in the tropics. Along the shoreline, coral reefs shelter white sand beaches and fishing communities that have relied on the sea for generations. Jamaica's cultural influence far exceeds its size. Shaped by African heritage, colonial history, and a strong tradition of music and storytelling. Once a key British colony built on plantation agriculture, the island evolved into a symbol of Caribbean identity and resistance. Towns like Kingston and Montego Bay reflect this dual legacy, where modern life coexists with historical landmarks. And the rhythms of reggae echo across the island and far beyond its shores. Curaçao sits just north of Venezuela in the southern Caribbean and is the largest of the ABC Islands. Its landscape is shaped primarily by ancient coral limestone rather than volcanic forces, giving rise to rolling hills, dry plains, and rugged coastlines punctuated by sheltered natural harbors. The island's semi-arid climate limits dense vegetation, yet mangroves, salt flats, and resilient coastal ecosystems thrive along its shores. Willemstad, the capital, developed around one of the Caribbean's finest deepwater harbors and became a major trading and refining center under Dutch rule. Its pastel-colored colonial buildings reflect centuries of European, African, and Caribbean influence. Curaçao's surrounding reefs support rich marine biodiversity, while its cultural identity is defined by multilingualism. Creole traditions, and a long history of maritime commerce. Guadeloupe is an archipelago in the Lesser Antilles, composed of two main islands separated by a narrow sea channel. Basse-Terre, the western island, is mountainous and volcanic. Crowned by La Soufrière, an active volcano surrounded by dense rainforest and waterfalls. Grande-Terre, to the east, is flatter and limestone-based, with rolling plains, lagoons, and coral-fringed beaches. This geological contrast creates distinct climates and ecosystems within a compact area. As a French overseas region, Guadeloupe reflects a fusion of European administration and Afro-Caribbean cultural traditions. Sugarcane cultivation historically shaped land use and settlement patterns. Mangrove forests protect coastal zones, while coral reefs support fisheries and tourism. The archipelago's strategic position made it a contested territory during colonial expansion, leaving a layered historical and architectural legacy. Aruba lies just north of the South American coast. Set apart from the hurricane belt and known for its dry climate and constant trade winds. Unlike many Caribbean islands, its terrain is arid and rugged. Shaped by ancient igneous rock formations rather than lush rainforests. Low hills such as Mount Hooiberg rise from flat desert plains dotted with cacti and divvy trees bent by prevailing winds. The surrounding waters are shallow and clear, bordered by coral reefs and white sand beaches that attract global tourism. Once inhabited by the Kakatio people, Aruba later became part of the Dutch colonial empire. A legacy still visible in architecture and governance. Fishing villages and ports evolved into modern urban centers while preserving local traditions. Today, Aruba's economy relies heavily on tourism. Balanced by environmental conservation and cultural heritage. Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico lies at the eastern edge of the Greater Antilles, where the Caribbean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean. The island's landscape is defined by a mountainous interior dominated by the Cordillera Central, with rivers flowing outward toward fertile coastal plains. Tropical rainforests, such as El Yunque, create humid microclimates that support dense vegetation and rare wildlife. San Juan, one of the oldest continuously inhabited European-founded cities in the Americas, reflects centuries of Spanish colonial rule through its forts, walls, and historic streets. Puerto Rico's position made it a vital military and trade hub, contested by European powers before becoming a United States territory in 1898. Coral reefs and mangrove systems protect the coastline while sustaining fisheries and tourism. Today, the island blends Caribbean traditions with modern American influence, producing a distinct cultural identity expressed through language, music, and architecture. Cuba is the largest island in the Caribbean, stretching across the mouth of the Gulf of Mexico, where the Caribbean Sea meets the Atlantic Ocean. Its elongated form contains diverse landscapes, from the limestone hills of Viñales to the dense forests of the Sierra Maestra Mountains. Fertile soils and a tropical climate have long supported sugarcane, tobacco, and coffee cultivation, shaping both the economy and identity of the island. Havana, the capital, preserves one of the most extensive collections of colonial architecture in the Americas, reflecting centuries of Spanish rule. Cuba's strategic position made it a crossroads of trade and conflict, influencing global politics well into the 20th century. Coral reefs fringe much of the coastline, protecting calm bays and supporting rich marine ecosystems. Despite periods of isolation, Cuban culture has radiated outward through music, dance, and art, deeply influencing the wider Caribbean world. The Virgin Islands. Between the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean lies the Virgin Islands, an archipelago divided politically between the United States and the United Kingdom. The U.S. Virgin Islands include St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix. While the British Virgin Islands are centered around Tortola, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, and Jost Van Dyke. Despite modern borders, the islands share a common geological origin shaped by volcanic activity and tectonic uplift that formed rugged hills, coral reefs, and sheltered bays. Mangrove forests line many coasts, protecting shorelines from erosion and serving as nurseries for marine life. Historic harbors like Charlotte-Amalie and Roadtown developed as strategic ports during the Age of Sail, blending colonial architecture with contemporary island culture. First sighted by Christopher Columbus in 1493, the islands later became key maritime assets, with the United States purchasing its portion from Denmark in 1917, cementing a division that remains today. Antigua lies at the heart of the Lesser Antilles and is known for its relatively flat terrain compared to neighboring volcanic islands. Formed primarily from uplifted limestone and coral. The island features rolling hills, dry scrublands, and an extensive coastline, deeply indented with natural harbors. These sheltered bays made Antigua a strategic naval base for the British Empire, most notably at English Harbour, which played a key role in controlling Caribbean shipping routes. Limited freshwater resources shaped settlement patterns and agricultural practices, historically centered on sugar plantations. Today, Antigua's economy revolves around tourism and maritime services, with coral reefs, calm seas, and historical dockyards, reflecting the island's long relationship with the ocean. St. Martin is unique in the Caribbean as the smallest inhabited island, shared by two nations, divided between France in the north and the Netherlands in the south. Despite the political boundary, the island functions as a single geographic and ecological system shaped by volcanic origins and low mountain ridges, coastal lagoons, sandy beaches, and coral reefs dominate the shoreline, while dry forests cover the interior hills. The island's position made it a valuable trading post during the colonial era, particularly for salt harvesting. Today, tourism drives the economy, supported by a dense infrastructure of ports and airports. Cultural influences blend seamlessly with European governance, Caribbean traditions, and international commerce, coexisting within a compact and highly connected island environment. Cayman Islands are a British overseas territory located west of Jamaica, consisting of 3 low-lying limestone islands rising from deep ocean trenches. Unlike most Caribbean islands, they are not volcanic, resulting in flat terrain with no rivers or mountains. Surrounding coral reefs and clear waters define the island's natural character and support one of the region's most important marine ecosystems. Historically isolated, the Caymans developed around seafaring, fishing, and turtle harvesting before transforming into a global financial and tourism hub. Mangrove wetlands protect coastlines from erosion, while marine conservation zones preserve biodiversity. The island's stability, governance, and strategic location have allowed them to evolve into a major economic center. Despite their small land area, St. Lucia rises dramatically from the Eastern Caribbean, defined by its volcanic origins and steep mountainous interior. The island's most iconic features are the Pitons, twin volcanic spires that dominate the southwestern coastline and serve as a symbol of the nation's geological history. Dense rainforests cover much of the interior, fed by abundant rainfall and crossed by rivers, waterfalls, and geothermal springs. Fertile volcanic soils support agriculture, particularly bananas and cocoa, which shaped St. Lucia's economy. For decades, the island's location made it highly contested during colonial times, changing hands repeatedly between Britain and France. Influences still visible in language, architecture, and culture. Today, its rugged terrain, coral reefs, and cultural heritage define both its identity and its appeal. Grenada lies at the southern end of the Lesser Antilles, where volcanic origins and fertile soils have shaped both its landscape and history. The island is characterized by rolling hills, central mountains, and deeply cut valleys that channel rivers toward the coast. Heavy rainfall in the interior supports dense rainforest, while coastal areas transition into drier woodlands and beaches. Grenada became known as the Spice Isle due to its long-standing cultivation of nutmeg, cloves, cinnamon, and cocoa, crops that still define much of its rural economy. Its natural harbor at St. George's provided strategic value during colonial competition between European powers. Today, Grenada balances agriculture, tourism, and marine conservation with coral reefs and underwater sculpture parks, protecting coastal ecosystems. Dominica stands apart in the Caribbean for its raw, untamed landscape and high volcanic peaks. Often called the Nature Island, it is one of the youngest islands in the region geologically, with active geothermal features, including boiling lakes, fumaroles, and hot springs. Dense rainforests blanket the interior, sheltering hundreds of rivers that cascade down steep valleys toward the sea. This rugged terrain limited large-scale plantation agriculture, allowing much of the island's natural environment to remain intact. Dominica is also home to the Kalinago people, the Caribbean's last indigenous community, with a recognized territory. The island's biodiversity, volcanic energy, and cultural resilience define its distinct character. St. Vincent and the Grenadines forms a chain of islands stretching southward into the Caribbean Sea, combining rugged volcanic terrain with low-lying coral islands. St. Vincent itself is dominated by La Soufriere, an active stratovolcano whose eruptions have repeatedly reshaped the island's landscape and soil fertility. Steep slopes and deep valleys define the main island, while the Grenadines consist of dozens of small islands and cays surrounded by shallow reefs and turquoise waters. Historically dependent on agriculture, especially arrowroot and sugar, the region has shifted toward tourism and yachting. The contrast between mountainous St. Vincent and the flat, reef-fringed Grenadines creates one of the Caribbean's most diverse island systems. St. Kitts. St. Kitts is a volcanic island rising steeply from the eastern Caribbean, dominated by the forested slopes of Mount Liamuiga. At its center, fertile volcanic soils once supported extensive sugar plantations, which shaped the island's economy and social structure. For centuries, under British colonial rule, abandoned plantation estates and rail lines still trace the coastline, marking this agricultural past. The island's mountainous interior remains largely undeveloped, covered by rainforest and cloud forest that capture moisture from passing trade winds. Coastal plains host modern settlements and ports, while surrounding coral reefs support marine life and tourism. St. Kitts' compact geography combines natural resilience with deep historical layers formed by plantation culture and maritime trade. From endless stretches of turquoise water to sun-washed beaches, dense green interiors, and rhythms that echo through every island, the Caribbean is more than a destination. It's a feeling. Each island carries its own story, shaped by the sea, the wind, and the people who call it home. I'd love to hear from you. Which Caribbean island would you want to explore first? If you enjoyed traveling through the Caribbean with me, make sure to subscribe for more island journeys, hidden places, and stories from around the world. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.